Hello and welcome back to Meat City Gaming. JD here with another achievement guide in Kronos Battle Worlds. Today we're looking at Mission 7, and this is called The Bomb. And we're continuing from the last mission where you need to capture this transport truck that is carrying a nuke and then get it out of the area. So, again, this mission has a lot of steps that are involved. There's a lot of combat, a lot of encounters, and a lot of parts to the mission. So, I was as aggressive as possible in editing the video to try and still show the important parts, the battles, the strategy, the movement, where I kind of went to accomplish the goal. But it's still pretty long. So what I'm going to do up front is give a brief explanation of the objectives you need to complete. Then I'll go into a little more detail about how I did it, and that'll be in the first 5 or 10 minutes, and then you'll be good to go in terms of that. The difficulty isn't exceptionally hard if you kind of have a plan in place and know what to expect. There's nothing that you need to get too worried about in terms of the difficulty for completing the mission, but I'll have the rest of the battle, the rest of the fights in there following the commentary, so you can see something if you're having trouble with it or if you want to know what's coming. So in this mission, the primary objective that you have to start is to capture the transport truck. You get a glimpse of it at the start of the mission. It is north and in the center of the map, pretty close to the northern border. You start in the southeast, and you are also given a secondary objective to capture the base to the west. So the first thing that you'll do, you'll start out with a mobile army. You have no buildings under your control, just a number of tanks or ground units, including some soldiers and some wheeled vehicles as well. You can bring in some of your veterancy units. I suggest the Medusa, which is the unit we were introduced to in the previous mission. It's good for destroying turrets. It has a range of 4, so it can outdistance turrets, and anything it shoots gets EMP'd, gets stunned for a turn. So you can shoot a gun turret from a safe distance, disable it, rush in, and take it out without any worry about counterattacks. It's also great for taking out tanks and other heavy-hitting ranged units. So the first thing that you're going to do is work your way to the north, and there's 2 parts to a mini base. To the far east border of the map, there's a little depot, and to the west of that, there's a miniature base. And that is not the one that counts for completing the secondary objective. I do recommend that you take it. You want to basically capture all the buildings, get all the units that you can out of them. Some of them, as usual, will have units stashed within them. So when you capture them, you can evacuate those units and they will join your army. And then you will get access to a mule transport, which are the units that can serve as a mobile kind of rearming station. But I don't suggest you build any units yet. You will take over a light factory. I would use your mule to gather up all the resources you can and bring them with you. The idea here is we want to build units at a building that's only available at one specific base. Those units are helicopters. They're extremely effective in this mission, so you want to build as many of those as possible. So right now you just want to gather the units, bring them with you, and then you can dump them off in the building that makes the helicopters later on, and it will make the mission go a lot smoother for you. One interesting twist that this map has is at the start of the mission. So the map is kind of an upside down U-shaped landmass with a little river kind of snaking through the middle of the map. And when you start the mission, the river is melted. It's water. You can't cross it with your land units. As the mission goes on, 10 turns or so into it, the river starts to freeze, and so eventually you can completely traverse it. And so the secondary base that you need to take is basically directly to the west of that first mini base that you take over. And so if you just wait a couple turns after taking that first base, you could just march across the river and try to flood that base and take it and accomplish your secondary objective. But again, there's no rush for that, and I suggest you go north first and secure that base. That's the rebel or the citizen or residents, I think, are the term of the army. Take that base first because that's where you can make the helicopters. Then use those to take over the secondary base in the south west to accomplish your secondary objective. So push to the north, go after this resident base, and let me tell you, when you attack that base, keep your army tight. Don't extend any units too far because the rebel army or the resident army has a ton of cloaked units. They have, I mean, dozens of soldiers, rocketeers, lots of things that are hidden that you just don't expect to be that many of them. So you want to limit the amount of exposure your units have because you could be getting charged by 2, 3, 4, 5 units per enemy turn that you don't know are there. And so, you don't want to leave one unit that can get surrounded and attacked by 5 different units because it'll die. If you take 2 hits, you'll probably be able to pull that unit back and save it or repair it. So you're going to have to slowly, kind of cautiously work your way into that base. You're given a couple of mobile eyes. They're flying scout units, basically. Use those to try and suss out the enemy locations. You can pop them from stealth and then take them out pretty easily. As long as you're making the first attack from range, you can abuse the range of some of the units you have to take out these mostly close range soldiers. One thing to watch out for, the enemy resident base does have quite a few gun turrets, and the gun turrets for the resident, unlike the gun turrets for the enemy army, the ones that are similar to yours, they can attack both air and ground. So most of the units that you're familiar with so far, the gun turrets have a land gun turret and an AA gun turret as 2 separate units. But these gun turrets can do both, so be careful about engaging them or letting your mobile eye get too close because they'll get taken out very quickly. So you want to slowly work your way capturing that base. Then once you have the helicopter factory secured, I think it's called a workshop, dump all the resources that you've collected into that workshop, collect all the resources around the rest of the base, dump those into the workshop, and just pump out the helicopters, as many as you can. And then you can pretty much take over the rest of the map and do whatever you want without too much resistance. So I took over that base, pumped out helicopters. I went back down south. The enemy had recaptured that first base that I had taken because I was up to the north. So I retook that, then moved to the west, secured the secondary base, which was pretty much a pushover at that point with all the helicopter units. Then worked my way up up north on the western border of the map, secured a couple more depots, a couple more units, and then finally I got to the supply truck, which is just a little bit to the west of that northern base that you took. So be careful after you take that northern base, you don't venture too far to the west right away, because as soon as you capture the truck, the next part of the mission opens up. And to capture the truck, you can kind of do it by accident. If you just pull up next to the truck, it becomes yours under control. And maybe there's still going to be enemies there. Maybe you're not going to be ready to kind of finish off that escort. So make sure you only do that when you're ready, when you have a good force to support. So once you've secured the truck, once it's under your control, then you need to go back down to the southeast to the first base that you took over. It'll light up a tile. It's like a white tile on the ground. There'll be a little cutscene with your general giving you some instructions, and he'll say, deliver the truck here. Now, interestingly, there are a number of those tiles around the map in each of the 3 bases. So I don't know if there's a scenario in which they could randomly pick another one, but in my playthrough, it was the south east base that you had to take the truck to. So what you're going to do then is work all your units down to that tile, and as soon as you park the truck on it, it's going to pop the next phase of the mission. So you want to be really prepared. Don't just rush down there. Get yourself set up and then move the truck in only when you're ready to start the final phase. The final phase of the mission is to defend that tile and the truck on it for 10 turns. And you're going to get, a significant amount of enemies coming after you at that point. A big force from the far west, which will include a lot of tanks, and then a bunch of those resident units will come from the northeast as well. So use the choke points, right? Find a good choke point for each of the 2 areas. Set up your defenses. Use the helicopters. Use mines. If you have your infantry units left, lay down some mines so the enemy have to roll over them because they're going to come down to where you are, so you can set up your defense. And one of the really powerful things you can do is Because air units take up a tile just like a ground unit, you can use the helicopters to create a blockade, and any enemy tank that or enemy unit that can't attack air, well, then you're just going to be creating a roadblock because the enemy units can't pass through tiles that your units are occupying. And the air units count. They're occupying that tile. So the enemy ground units can't drive through that tile. And if they can't attack your helicopter, well, now you've got an impenetrable defense. So be smart about it. Again, the helicopters are really, really overpowered in this mission. There's just not a lot that can damage them. And anything that can damage them, you can quickly overwhelm with 6 or 8 of your helicopters. Throw in a couple of ranged units, and you're going to take out those limited units very quickly, and then you can pick everything else off with the helicopters. Once you've defended for the full 10 turns, the mission will end, and as long as you have captured the base to the southwest, you'll get the secondary objective, and as long as you haven't requested manual reinforcements through the menu, you will have completed the third objective, which unlocks all 3 achievements, 1 for the primary objective, 1 for the secondary objective, and 1 for not requesting reinforcements. So there you go, guys. This is, again, nothing too difficult. There's a lot of steps here. This one, once again, took a little bit longer. This was about a 4-hour mission for me to get through. Again, I'm always going through these a bit slower and cautious. But now you guys, if you've seen this, will have a little bit of a preview of what's to come, and hopefully you'll be able to get through it a little more efficiently than I was. Hopefully that helped out. If it did, please feel free to leave a like for the video. I do appreciate it, as always. And feel free to subscribe for future content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.